Why devotional songs? Well, devotional songs are songs in the context of my work are songs dedicated to a particular deity. So let's say a devotional song to Woden. It's a song in admiration, showing devotion, showing love for if you will, to the divine, showing a connection, if you will. Okay. Why make these songs? Well, it is really to. There are many reasons for it, and I'll go into it. But primarily, it's to please the deity. Sure, you can't change a deity. The deity doesn't need devotional songs, but allows us to, perform devotional songs to the deity. And the thing is, when you give something up of value, like how I give my, out of all the things I could sing about, I sing towards a deity. By giving my all, making it sound the best. When you really like someone, what do you give them? Do you give your 20%? Do you give them your 50%? No, you give them your 100%. If you really admire something and love something, you devote yourself. Hence, devotion, devotional, devotee. Okay, and some of you maybe think, okay, what's the practical reason behind this? To remove ego. All right, because when you give something, like in the case of a song, what that does, it creates, it accumulates or it cultivates humility, okay, and it accumulates sanity as well. That's something. Because thing is, we live in an age now where you get people that are so wrapped up in their own created ego on the internet. Oh, look at me! I have all these likes. How nice, or what have you, and it's just me. But when living in accordance of Sanatana Dharma, or if you will in Old English, Endebyrdnes, or what that means is essentially natural law, or the natural way, that it is a total opposite of that. It's not about me. It's about the other person, or in the case of devotional songs, it's about the deity, and the deity first, if you will. And to top it off, people who live in ego, they think they are the center of all reality, and seeking earthly pleasure to earthly pleasure. All right. There's a video I want to recommend. It's called it's a video by Dharma Nation called "The Path of Self-Surrender." This video goes into more depth of what I'm talking about. Okay, so the path of self-surrender. And again, yes. By having devotional songs, it's a way to cultivate humility, sanity, and it makes you feel better, because it's better to give than to receive, definitely. And when I say devotion, devotion comes from within. Like I sing these songs because I want to, not because if I don't do them, I'll go into some bad place for eternity. No, that's Abrahamism. Abrahamism sees life as a test, that, whether you go to heaven or hell or what have you, but that's not the case with Indo-European spirituality. Like no one is putting a sword to my back and say, hey, you make these songs or anything like that. Moving on. And importantly, why devotional songs? It's to cultivate joy, to get further in achieving eternal bliss. And this is not magical thinking. You know, and it's by bits by bits. It accumulates over time. It's not like, you know, I do a devotional song, then bam, all of a sudden I'm blissful and whatnot. No, you develop it over time, and that's the thing with a lot of people, is that when they think of spirituality, they think you have to be very serious. You have to be very. I mean, yes, it can be, but at the same time, it's very joyful. Like, I get so much joy out of making these songs. Like, it's the most fulfilling thing for my channel, I find, to do these songs. It's you know, like, one of the very reasons people get into spirituality is to get away from negativity, depression, and despair. You know, it's really something positive, and I want to recommend another video by Dharma Nation regarding this subject, called "Being Joyful in Spiritual Practice." He goes into more detail about this subject. And why devotional songs? Well, it's to help the mind to transcend, to go beyond, to experience the divine. You know, it's because thing is, the gods or the divine is everywhere, but our minds are not. You know, that's why, you know, in the case of Sanatana Dharma, I mean, people follow Dharma, that's why they have devotional songs, that's why they have meditations, that's why they have idols that they venerate, that they adorn and deck with the most beautiful vestments and whatnot. You know, take a look at any idol of, like, I don't know, Krishna or Ganesh or you name it, you know, and they're really beautifully adorned. The whole point behind it, well, obviously it's devotion, but, like, it's to focus the mind onto the deity. You know, that's you know, right. You know, anyway, so, but I want to recommend another video that talks about this specifically, by a channel called Dharma Speaks. It's called Hinduism, Understanding Image and Temple Worship. This video goes into great detail of what I'm talking about. Link down below. Anyway, the thing is, when I'm singing these songs, you know, I'm not singing, you know, just to make a song. No, I'm singing to a deity. I'm singing to my last one, to Eald. You know, I'm singing directly to him, to please him. You know, to give myself to him. You know. And it gives me joy to do that, because thing is, these songs, I find they bring out the best in me. You know, I'm giving myself to a higher being, alright? You know, it's just so rewarding, I find. You know, like, I make these songs in this specific order. Number 1, the gods. Number 2, the devotees of those gods. So let's say someone's you know, my last one, people who venerate Eald would like this devotional song, because it's in accordance with their center of worship. And then we have, and finally 3, myself. You know, I get joy from, you know, I mean, but my main priority is the deities, or you know, or yeah, the divine. And that's the most fulfilling part. And there's something else I would like to say, that you know, if some of you maybe want to criticize me, oh Kevin, your music sounds too modern or whatever. Yeah, the thing is, by the way, you know, even if Christianity never happened, you know, the pagan culture and spirituality would have changed anyway. You know, the way people practice Sanatana Dharma now is not the same way they did 1,000 years ago. You know, things change over time. You know, again, that's a very Abrahamic way of thinking, that, you know, that everything is static. You got to keep it the way it is, no matter what, no matter how much time is, no matter how much the world has changed over time. You got to keep it the same. But with the Indo-European mindset is that, yeah, things can change but can stay true to the original. That is perennialism. That things can change but remain true to the original. Now, devotional songs and singing to a deity and such, in itself is a form of devotional service. The most fulfilling service that is humanly conceivable. What is a deity? A very simple, straightforward question. What is a deity? I know in this video I've mentioned giving myself to a deity or deities or what have you. Well, in brief, a deity is a metaphysical, divine personality. Metaphysical, meta, beyond physical, trans-empirical. This is not something you could see. But all right. So the thing is, and if we as human beings are subjects and personalities, why would the gods be less? I mean, it's a new age thing to say that, oh, the gods are just only archetypes. They're just mental objects. They are just and then further you got people that through Christian euhemerism, that, oh, these gods were once people, but then were deified or whatever. Well, no, I mean, like actually Christian euhemerization, that was actually a way for the Christian church fathers to undermine the validity of pagan deities. Anyway, moving on. And if people adopt this idea that, the gods are just archetypes or what have you, just mental objects, well, I mean, if we adopt that, then that would make us atheists, essentially. Instead, they do have personalities. I mean, hence why humans give them personal names to address them personally, just as people address you. You have a personal name, and people address you personally, right? You're not an object. You're a subject. It's the same thing with gods. All right. To explain this, imagine a stone, and that stone, and there's light, and behind the stone is its shadow, right? And the shadow represents reality. The stone represents super reality. Okay? And the thing is, that reality, that's the first reality, I mean, that wouldn't be there if the super reality isn't there. I would like to recommend another video about this specific topic about reality and super reality as a video by Savannah the Jive called Pagan Mythology and Rites. What do they mean? Now, the thing is, science is great. Science can explain the physical world, but it cannot explain the metaphysical world, or what is trans-empirical, things beyond of what we can humanly perceive, despite our advanced technology or what have you. Rather, when it comes to the question of belief, it's not blind belief as you have in Abrahamic traditions. Rather, it is a belief based on experience. Just as you have a route, you take to work, you keep using that route because you've been it works. You get to work on time, whatever. Therefore, you believe and trust that route to get to where you want to go. Anyway, it's the same thing with spirituality. That if with enough dedication and a yearning heart of meditations and other forms of devotion or what have you, you will get an experience over time. It's not instant; it's gradual. So that's why in Sanatana Dharma, they have idols and songs and meditations and whatnot. I mean, because the gods are everywhere, but our minds are not. Our minds are really, as some would say, are blocking us to experience the divine because we live in a very rational world where, like, oh, you need evidence and whatnot, whereas you know, with the Indo-European spirituality. I mean, evidence. I mean, like, let me say this: do you need evidence do you need evidence for a beauty of a rose? No, because it's evident. It's right there. There's another video I would like to recommend from Dharma Speaks, and this is regarding, for some of you who are very evidence-based, empirical knowledge and whatnot. There's a video I recommend called Hinduism vs. Atheism, Ultimate Meaning versus Material Facts. And this video goes into greater detail of what I've said earlier about do you need evidence for the beauty of a rose? He says that, and he goes into more detail about that. You know, I mean, this whole notion of evidence and whatnot. I mean, it's. I mean, yes, you can draw inspiration from historical evidence. You know, like from things from the pagan past, if you will. But don't limit yourself to these things, because there's a very limited spirituality. I mean, the difference between Abrahamic and Indo-European, it's not how well you follow X, Y, and Z book. That's Abrahamic, whereas in Indo-European, it's about one's own spiritual development. You know, I mean, you can take as long as you like. Now, there's something else I want to talk about. It's very important. You know, okay, with gods or deities, that you have a relationship. You want to connect to the divine, and we do this through many forms of devotion, songs, dancing, or what have you. Here we have Snoopy. Okay. Now, my relationship with Snoopy is a material relationship, because this toy, if you will this exist in 1,000 years? No, it'll cease to be. It'll eventually fall apart. And the difference is between this and, let's say, a god. Well, the god is not material. It is by nature eternal. A god cannot die. You cannot change a god. You can't, the god's just there eternally. An idol of a deity, that's material. That will deteriorate over time. But the deity itself will not deteriorate over time. I hope that makes sense. And, yes, this particular toy, yes, this is a material relationship. This thing won't last forever. Just as other material relationships that people have. I don't know, like people really love their car. Now, let's change that scenario up a bit. Let's say Snoopy was not a toy, but rather let's change that scenario up, and let's say that was a person. Let's say that was a friend of mine or someone human, right? The thing is that human relationships, they are material. They are temporary, but there's a difference between something that is a living being, like from anything from a human to a pet to a plant. Now, this subject I'm about to bring in, I will recommend two videos by Dharma Nation. One called The Origin of the Soul, and another one called Non-Dualism and Personality. Okay? But anyway, I will mention these two titles of videos again later in this bit. The thing is, with living beings, all living beings have something called, in Sanskrit, this is known as Atma, or Atman. And the linguistic cognates to this word in Old English is Adam. Yeah, sorry, Adam. Or if you will, Adam or Adam, or Adam as well. And that word Adam, it means breath, it means vapor, it means it means breath, but it's related to Atma, or Atman, in Sanskrit. A modern German cognate is Atem, means breath. It comes from the same sources as Atman. And what is Atman in a nutshell? I won't be able to cover like the whole meaning of Atman in this video. That's why I'm going to recommend those 2 other videos. Atman, in brief, is a eternal spark of consciousness. Okay, that is always existing. It is never born. It can never die. It is always eternal, always existing. You know, every living being has this. I know for some of you this may sound really strange stuff, but this is, you know, known in Sanatana Dharma for thousands of years. You know, this idea of Atman, that we're all eternal sparks of consciousness, and that yes, our bodies, our physical bodies, my skin, my hair, what have you, these are material. I mean, over time, you know, I will get older and my body will cease to be one day, as life goes in a cycle. So, but me as an individual, as the eternal spark of consciousness, it'll manifest in another life form, if you will. Okay? And it keeps on going and going and going, and you know, it's but I don't want to go too brief, because you know, I can only articulate so much of this, so I'd rather leave it to an expert, which again, I'll mention the 2 videos by Dharma Nation of the origin of the soul and non-dualism and personality. And the man behind Dharma Nation is actually a spiritual teacher, or as known in Sanskrit, an acharya, which means a spiritual teacher, specifically. So yeah, so basically, with material relationships among people, living beings, yeah, they are temporary, but at the same time, they are to be cherished. You know, they are to be cherished and valued, because, you know, I mean, you know, the relationship between friends, I mean, and family, yeah, those things are valuable, but they are temporary. Whereas in comparison to a relationship with a deity, that's a little different, because the deity is always there. You know, sure, idols may differ in likeness or what have you, but it's still representing the same deity, whatever that deity may be. Alright, I hope this makes sense. Alright, so again, I recommend by Dharma Nation, The Origin of the Soul, and non-dualism and personality, to, like, he goes into greater detail than I am about this specific subject. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it insightful. You know, I would recommend to rewind it, if you will, to understand some of the things I'm saying, and check out the videos that I've recommended. And yeah, so the channels I've recommended are Dharma Nation, Dharma Speaks, and Survive the Jive. I recommend those channels greatly. Okay? Anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you're new, and if you want to help out the channel, please become a patron at my Patreon page down below. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.